Hey up. So now that we've done, for a while anyway, with the awfulness that is Faces of Death, we can get back on track with what this series seems to do the most of. Maybe not the best, just the most. That being millenitrash. Lucky us. In this episode, we are taking a look at Cannibal Dead, The Ghouls, also just known as The Ghouls. This is a 2003 horror film directed by Chad Ferrin, who hasn't done a whole lot. This is his second feature, and it looks like his most famous thing is some cult horror film called Easter Bunny Kill Kill. Don't know, not heard of that one. Might be interesting, I don't know. Apparently it's got a cult following though. And it looks like he's still working today, so good for him. Good for him. Our lead is a guy called Timothy Muscatel, who's not really done much outside of working with Ferrin by the looks of things, but we do get a few sort of names in this. They're not the hugest, but you know, it's people you might recognise. Trent Harger is a name that I recognised because he did a voice in Where the Dead Go to Die, which is a pretty fucked up animated film that I quite enjoyed. Maybe a slight recommendation there if you're into that sort of thing. Joe Pilato is also a name that stood out. Now he's someone we have spoke about on this channel before. He was in Effects, which I covered in the AGFA 101 series, which I will get back to, by the way. And he was also in Dawn of the Dead, so interesting. But probably most famously, pre-becoming a famous director, this film stars James Gunn. Interesting. So, while it's not got an all-star cast, there's some people in here that have piqued my interest somewhat. And I think at this point, I'm just happy to be covering something that's not Faces of Death. So let's have a look, shall we? Let's see what we've got.
Ghouls.
They call them the Ghouls.
Great. Well, now you got a name for them.
The shit that comes out of that dog's ass. People step in it, they look at it long and hard, they know it's shit, it's always gonna be shit. And that's what the news is.
You come back yet, crawling on your hands and knees, you hear me?
I have some footage on.
Get out!
I have footage that's gonna knock you on your ass.
Listen, cowboy.
The film follows Eric, a guy who videos acts of violence to sell on to the news. One rough night, he catches a group who attack and eat a woman in front of him. Unfortunately for him though, he forgot to load his camera. So with the help of a friend, he heads back to the scene of the crime to try and catch something else like that happening again. But he might have just got himself a little too embroiled in the mystery. There's not an awful plot here, there's something that could work. Unfortunately though, this film really stretches this premise out, and some scenes just grind the whole thing to a halt. It's not the worst thing in this collection, but it is far from the best.
Fuck, it smells like piss in here.
Help! But you did nothing! You did nothing!
Fuck you!
The acting is very much low budget acting. You know, we've seen a hell of a lot worse in this collection, but most of it just comes across as pretty flat, really. The characters are all very one-note and stereotypical as well, so you don't really find anyone to latch on to or root for, and instead you're just sort of waiting for the next kill to happen. On kills, there is gore here, which is nice to see, but it's a little cheap and a little quick and lazy, I guess. A few things stood out. There was a guy cut in half, but it did look a little bit wonky. And the skinned guy at the end, it doesn't look all too skinned. It's a little rubber suit and a little cheap. As I said, at least the gore is here and there is some stuff to see, but cheap is sort of the word for it, I guess. Just feels a bit sort of rushed. There is a bit of sleaze in here as well, but it's pretty fast. It just sort of flashes in front of your face, really, and that's about your lot for it. The Ghouls, or Cannibals, or whatever the hell you want to call them. These are a bit of a mixed bag. There's some fun and campiness to them, but the design is very lazy. Just a bit of white face paint. Quite theatrical, they sort of pop out of corners, all jazz hands and stuff, and that's fun. But overall with them, I'd say I was a little bit disappointed with the designs. I was expecting a little bit more from Ghouls, and they're just, who knows what they are here as well, really. It doesn't really delve too much into what they are. I think there's supposed to be some sort of metaphor about them. They live in the sewer, they look sort of poor, I guess, maybe some like lower class sort of thing, but all that just sort of gets shoved to one side. It doesn't really delve too deep into it, I guess. The way this is put together as well, it's a little lazy at points. I've said lazy and I've said cheap a lot, and they really are the key words here. Some shots go on a bit too long. It feels like the camera's just been sort of shoved to the side and left to roll. And some of the music choices are good. Some of the free jazz I especially liked. But then things like the good, the bad and the ugly theme popping in, or some of the noisier sections all just felt a bit amateur. As I said, cheap, lazy, those are the key terms for this film.
That's more like it.
Start talking.
Oh, down here we call them ghouls.
You could definitely say that this film fits into the millenitrash bracket that we've created. There's a few reasons why, you know, the sleazy elements, the frantic editing, the fact that it's shot on mini DV, some of the obnoxious sound designs, and just that sort of overall sense of trying to make something much bigger with not much resources. There's also an element of bad taste in this, and this is something, I don't know. It felt a bit dirty to me, I guess. So this sort of film, it shouldn't be having any sort of bigger concepts in it, I guess, because it's quite surface level, it doesn't delve too deep into anything, and it's quite childish, I guess, in its mentality. So then when you thrust in a Down syndrome actor, I can't help but wince a little bit, because I'm like, what are you going to do here, film? You're not smart enough to deal with something like this. And unfortunately, it does sort of feel like this guy is only here to be the butt of the joke. And it's not fair, that sort of thing, really. It's not fair, it shouldn't be dealing with that sort of thing. It's not smart enough to deal with any sort of disability or anything like that. And yeah, it feels bad taste, honestly. So this film it's not a trauma film, this, but it is sort of trauma adjacent. The director started out at trauma, and as did famously James Gunn, who worked on Romeo and Juliet. So you can kind of see the trauma influences here. It's not as wacky and in your face and over the top, but it does have that sort of scrappy, making something out of nothing sort of sensibility to it. I want to mention the ending to this film as well. So it's an 82-minute film, and about 70 minutes in, it kind of feels like it ends. We have the climax, and it feels like it could have just cut to credits right there. But it does keep on going, and I'm like, why is it keeping on going? And we once again use the Down syndrome actor for a gag that doesn't really land for me. I don't know. Again, it just feels very surface level, amateur and childish, and it just sort of rambles around then, and it keeps going and keeps going, and then we get the credit roll. This should have been 70 minutes, I feel like it would have been more palatable. I think, to be honest, it should have been much shorter. It could have trimmed a lot out of this, but End it at 70 minutes and it might have been a bit more palatable. The fact that it just keeps going is really strange. I don't know why they've included these last few scenes in it.
Fuck, you see here? I'm staying here. It's your move. It's your move. It's your move.
Okay, let's take a look at this print then. It's in 4x3 and it's pretty dark and washed out. It's quite a soft sort of look and it's not great. It's a bit muddy, I guess, to look at. Now, there weren't any major flickers or issues like that or anything. It's just a dark, unappealing print that's hard to make out some of the finer details in it, unfortunately. And on the disc, usual stuff, chapter select, trailer for this, and Hard Gore trailers. Okay then, time for the case, and honestly, I don't think the cover for this is awful. Even though they do look more like zombies than cannibals or ghouls. But I don't hate it, there's something just sort of works, I guess. It's interesting that James Gunn wasn't quite the household name by this point. If this had been a 2010s DVD release, his name would have been plastered all over this. The info on the back seems fine, reads okay, and the runtime's correct. Screenshots aren't too terrible either. Yeah, not a bad package overall, really. Lastly, this has another catalogue on the inside. Overall then, this wasn't very good, unfortunately. It can have a charm every now and then, and things like James Gunn being in it do make it a little bit of a curiosity piece, but honestly it is slow, boring, and just not memorable. I will have forgotten about this film within the next week or two, I can promise you that. I'll look back at it and go, what happened in that one again? I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend it. Do you know what I would say though? While I was watching this, I kept thinking this is the cheap millenitrash version of Nightcrawler. Watch that instead. That's much better than this. If for some reason you are in the market though, there's this version and there is the Shriek Collection DVD as usual, as always. Probably exactly the same print though, and the print isn't great. But that's your lot, unfortunately. That's all we've got. And you know what? I am a bit surprised by that. I would have thought that somebody like 88 Films would have put out a version, especially with James Gunn being in this. It'd be a bit more of an easy sell. I could see that happening, to be honest, in the next few years, because you could just plaster James Gunn's name all over the case and it'll probably sell. So, not great this episode, and I think we're going to be having more of the same next episode, unfortunately. Judging by the cover and the title, I think it's going to be more millenitrash bullshit. Next episode, we are checking out Cannibal Detour, Hell's Highway. God, these names are terrible, aren't they?